Salutations everyone, and welcome to What Mattered, the show where I tell you what mattered in the news this week. The Star Wars Rogue One trailer hit a couple days ago, and boy, what a reveal at the end when they announced that Jar Jar is coming back. Oof, fan favorite. Hope he kills Boba Fett and talks to us about midichlorians and pod racing. Now that would be fan service. So by far the big story this week was finally the release of No Man's Sky, one of the most hyped video games of all time. Ever since it was announced 3 years ago, all we were hearing, hype, 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 no loading screen. Oh my god, this is going to be the best game ever. Wait, it's first-person shooter? Whatever, day one patch that completely changes everything, including the inventory and one of the possible storylines completely rewritten. Not a lot of reviews are out thus far because they had to wait for that huge day one patch. And I know for a lot of people, especially in the gaming industry, are going to say it was made by a team of like 2 people and made like $100 billion, so it doesn't matter, what you think about the game. It's amazing that this happened and that's super cool. And that's cute and all, but the game has to be good and stand on its own. Now, personally, I think it's going to go down as, at least if Star Citizen never comes out, the most overhyped game of all time. There was one dude who got a copy for $1,300 to play it like a week early, and telling people about the game. People are exploring these billions of different procedurally generated worlds, which the complete algorithm was changed on this day one patch. It is now out on PC as well as the PS4. And no benchmarks on those yet about, what's different about the PC or how terrible it's doing, which typically happens especially since we heard just a few days ago that they were still working on the PC release. So there might be quite a few kinks to get out before the PC release is nice and fresh and stable as it is on the PS4. But people are, discovering all these minerals, naming all these plants and animals, and all these planets and such. There's a lot of people really disappointed about the lack of content of the game. It's like, well, what did you expect from a small team? We have reports that really the overarching end game is like a 30-hour campaign, which is disappointing to some, but let's face it, that's more than most games. But this isn't like most games in the story interaction kind of way. It's Minecraft with 1,000 different resource management tools. People dig the music. People find it really peaceful and relaxing like Minecraft. So that's cool. It's definitely going to find a niche of people who really, really enjoy the game. But as far as, is it going to live up to the hype? Impossible, because people overhyped the shit out of this thing for 3 years straight from an incredibly small independent studio. And not a lot going for it, not a lot being shown of the game to get excited, either story-wise. There's no multiplayer whatsoever. You can't even see other people. If you end up on one of the 10 billion planets, you still can't see each other, so people are disappointed about lack of multiplayer. But, it is what it is. If you like it, kudos to you. If you felt that the game didn't live up to certain expectations, that might be your fault, but also the game industry has been hyping this thing for 3 years straight. So yeah, it's definitely going to disappoint when a small team does something relatively ambitious. It's going to miss quite a few benchmarks for some people. But overall, it's probably still going to sell well. From the DC side of things, we are hearing some really early pre-production stuff from a Man of Steel sequel. We all knew that Batman vs. Superman was originally called Man of Steel 2, and then it was Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and then it's just Batman vs. Superman, and now Batman's getting his own solo film. So, reportedly, Superman's getting his own solo film after a lot of doubts about that. It's not on the docket. You got the Justice League, you got Aquaman, you got Wonder Woman and Flash and Cyborg movies, and the Batman solo or multiple movies, but we didn't hear about a Superman movie. Those plans seem to have been left out in the dust, but with this new report, they are in very, very early pre-production processes of having a new Superman movie, with reportedly, now this is a very early production and a rumor, so probably not going to work out, Brainiac, Bizarro, and Supergirl are being thrown out there as possible characters in the film. Now, Brainiac obviously is an iconic villain for both Superman and for the DC Universe as a whole. that has yet to be covered on the big screen and is one of Superman's biggest enemies. Granted, we haven't seen Darkseid. It looks like he's going to be showing up in Justice League, probably based off of Batman vs. Superman. But he's definitely a character that I think you need to give him a shot, because he hasn't been used. They've used all these garbage villains and made-up villains in past Superman movies, and where the Kryptonite is the antagonist 99% of the time. But this definitely sounds like it could be good if, it does indeed happen. Brainiac would be great. Bizarro, another ancillary character to throw in there. It definitely might seem kind of weird, but this is really early pre-production rumors, so take that as you will. But if we can get another Superman movie, and we're past the origin, we're past Zod, and there's no kryptonite thus far, at least in the first film, we could get the best Superman film by a long shot if this does pan out. But hey, DC's not looking so great based off of reviews and revenue of their last few movies since they started the DC movie multiverse. On the Marvel side of things, we've heard a few things this week about Spider-Man Homecoming. We already knew that the Vulture was going to be the main enemy, who we still think is going to be Michael Keaton, but it hasn't been officially announced. We do know, however, who the other two villains are going to be, and they have been casted. Both the Shocker and the Tinkerer have been casted for this film. So, yes, 3 villains, once again, which some people may be a bit cautious of. Of course, we don't know how big of a role they're going to play. People criticized Amazing Spider-Man 2 for having too many villains, even though it had the same amount of villains as The Dark Knight and the same amount of capacity that each of those individual villains had. So I think those criticisms are very, very poorly made. So this one can be handled very differently. It's not, going to be Spider-Man 3, hopefully, in that kind of crazy, kooky, wacky way. We don't know what kind of role the Tinkerer is going to be playing. He's not really, a main villain kind of guy, so he might be behind the scenes or helping somebody or a group of people. And of course, the Shocker could be, an introductory villain before the Vulture, or maybe they're working together, or something like that. We got a lot of Overwatch news to talk about. There's going to be a Bastion cinematic that will be coming out on Gamescom next week, so we get to see a first animated short since the Soldier 76 animated short. Making this the second one since the game's launch to be shown. And this one's going to be focusing on Bastion, who definitely has some backstory to him since he's the only model of his kind left, being deactivated for a long, long time. So we get to see what's going on with him and how he encounters and flourishes with nature and the birds and all that good stuff. We've also heard that they are working on saving highlights and replays, but that team that would be working on that has been refocused to changes to Season 2, competitive as well as matchmaking issues and expanding the bandwidth. So those people are kind of overloaded on their workload, but they are going to be working on it. We've also, of course, really been wondering about Sombra with all of those hidden messages. People found this sugar skull in the code, which points to, a Reaper, Mexican origin. Possibly something happened on the Dorado map with him. So people are just going to keep on speculating about Sombra, which I think at this point is definitely going to be a character that's going to be released in the game because of all these hidden messages, these hidden trails of code, and all these hidden secret things that I'm sure we're going to be seeing more of. Couple are figured out within a couple of hours, but this last one wasn't found for 10 days. So yeah, Blizzard loves keeping people on their toes and hiding secret little things. So that's really cool to keep the fans interested. Also, there is going to be another balance update for the game where they're going to be buffing May and Mercy and nerfing Zenyatta. I know. I love Zenyatta. It was great that they gave him a buff, an extra 50 shields. That's the only thing that they did in the last update, and it made him, more tanky, but they said that he's too strong now, and they're probably going to be changing something with his Discord orb, which has been the same since the launch of the game, so I don't know why now his Discord orb is too strong, because he's only 50 shields tankier, so I don't know what the rationale is behind that, but Jeff Kaplan, the game director, has said that, Zenyatta is going to be getting some balance changes. And they're working on, for May, making her ult better, specifically. And for Mercy, they haven't really made any specifics about what they're going to make better about her, because the previous changes that they made to her didn't really work out to make her better. So there's all kinds of ideas that are swirling around their head for making Mercy better. but no specifics at this time, so that might be quite a ways out. Of course, we didn't know exactly what they were going to do to buff Diva, but with one simple change, boy, has she made quite the impact since that buff. And of course, we have more Pokemon Sun and Moon stuff. We got all these new Pokemon that we get to talk about. We got this fairy mushroom. We got this sea cucumber. We got this fish that turns into a school of fish. And of course, some Alola forms, which people are kind of divisive about. We got a super sassy Meowth, who is now a dark type. We got this new Raichu, which is cool to see Raichu get some love. Pikachu, of course, being the mascot of Pokemon. He is now electric psychic and surfs around on his tail. But the big story is the Alola form of Marowak, a fire ghost type. And another throwback, it's coming back news, is Rocko's Modern Life is getting a TV movie. We've heard a couple of these things about, old 90s Nickelodeon cartoons getting their own TV movies. More recently, Hey Arnold was supposed to be getting one, and we haven't heard much out of that thus far. The creator Joe Murray will be co-directing the film, which will be a commentary about the 21st century. So I don't know what they could call it, Rocko's Postmodern Life. So I'm a big fan of it myself. Spunky's the best. And, but I don't want to get my hopes up too much because we've heard a lot of these things coming back as, a TV movie special that we haven't seen much come out of those thus far. So I'm going to be holding my horses and not get too excited at this point. But we know Nickelodeon is kind of trying to dig into that trough of old 90s shows to get some hype and nostalgia back into their programming. So hey, if the whole Arnold thing pans out, then maybe there will be a Rocko's Modern Life Hour special, and that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I'm nauseous. Any Hootie and the Blowfish, that is what mattered this week. If you would like to know what matters in the future, hit the subscribe button when these videos comes out every single Saturday. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you next time.